draft invoices. Head under Invoices, Drafts, and click on the dollar amount of the invoice you want to edit. Now let's first take a look at what we have under the General tab. So the invoice date is the date you wish to generate the invoice on. Then we have the invoice period. This is the date range of entries to be included in the invoice. And then we have the label which you can attach for the invoice. By default, this will pre-fill with the matter name. And then you can specify which template to use, which is your billing template list, and you can even edit that billing template directly from under the screen by clicking on edit, and it will pull the template up for you, and you can select whatever you need and deselect whatever you don't need. Next, we have a series of details here just for reference purposes on the invoice details, including grace period, payment terms, the interest rate, who it was last sent by, if at all. As you can see here, this was not sent yet, and whether it is consolidated. This is not, since this is not checkmarked, and we can check the review completed checkbox if necessary. This will show a tick symbol under the status column on the main invoices draft screen. It will indicate the invoice has been reviewed and is ready to be sent out. If under firm-wide settings, which is under Invoice and Settings tab, you have Review required to send invoices checkbox enabled, users will not be able to send out the invoice unless the Review completed checkbox over here is checked. And then we have the invoice delivery methods, which is printer, which allows you to download a PDF, and we have email, which will send the invoice out to the email on file, and then we have the automail selection. Time self-charges $1.49 per piece, and additional postage is required. No return mailer will be included. Now let's head under Addresses tab. Under the Addresses tab, users can edit the from and to address details, including the email addresses. Click on Edit Address to edit any address, and you can choose which from address you want from your system addresses. And then we have the Narratives tab. From under the Narratives tab, you can change the invoice narratives, so the cover page narrative will appear towards the top of the cover page below the matter and client name. The invoice narrative text appears towards the top of the invoice page, again below the matter name, and the invoice footer text will appear towards the right at the center bottom of the invoice page, and then the invoice email message will be the text that appears in the email when you send the invoice email out. And we have the payment instructions. This is what appears at the bottom of the remittance page. And now under Time tab, under the Time tab, you can view and add new time entries to the invoice, and you can edit time entries of the invoice or include any missing time entries. So if there are any missing time entries that exist that can be included on the invoice, this button here will be activated and you can include any missing time, or you can even update original time entries. When editing a time entry, clicking on Update will only update the draft invoice. It will not update original time entries unless Update Original Time Entry as well is enabled. So let's click on Edit, and here we go. We have all the details pulled up. We can make the edits we need, and clicking Update Original Time Entry will update the original entry in the system, otherwise it will only make the update for this specific invoice scenario. You can even choose to hold the entry for billing out later on. And then let's take a look at the expense tab. Again, you have the opportunity to include any missing expense entries here, and you can edit expense entries just as you did under the time entry tab. Now, the interest tab will only appear if you have interest enabled against this specific invoice. So the interest is applicable after the grace period and payment terms have expired, and only for those client matters used in the draft invoice that have an unpaid sent invoice. You can enable the override calculated interest to edit the interest. If I select this, you can see that this figure has appeared here, and I can change this figure and press save to override. Next up, we have the totals tab. You can view the totals of the invoice and modify any adjustments. If you want a reduction, you can add it as an adjustment by adding a negative symbol. Otherwise, anything that you fill in here will be added onto the invoice. And then you can also give a reduction through a discount percentage.